Good evening. I'm Rohit Sharma and welcome to Desi from DC, coming to you every night from heart of Washington. This is where America's power corridors meet India's prime time to break down the political, economic, and global stories that shape both nations live from Washington DC. From Capitol Hill to Raisana Hill, we connect the dots between what happens here in Washington and how it echoes back home in India. We begin tonight with the big stories of the day. Trump-Xi phone call eases tensions. Pakistani-Americans demand Donald Trump accountability. Pentagon targets Senator Mark Kelly over illegal orders. Trump administration designate Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organizations. And Pakistani and Bangladeshi accounts impersonate MAGA supporters to attack Indians. Tonight, the United States is calling out Pakistan, and the message is unmistakable. Leaders in Washington are accusing Islamabad's powerful military establishment of something very serious: transnational repression. A new bipartisan push in Congress is amping the pressure on Donald Trump as it takes aim at Pakistan's military leadership. Lawmakers say Pakistan isn't just cracking down on critics at home, it's reaching across borders, even into the United States, to silence pro-democracy activists. Representatives Greg Casar of Texas and Pramila Jayapal of Washington, both on the powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee, are now leading a letter urging the Trump administration to hold Asim Munir, Pakistan's military chief, and Shehbaz Sharif, the prime minister, accountable for what they call transnational repression. They say activists in America have been threatened, harassed, and targeted simply for speaking out. This new push is backed by Pakistani-American grassroots groups, including the Community Alliance for Peace and Justice and Coalition to Change US Policy on Pakistan, also known as CUSP. Now, they've been rallying lawmakers on the Capitol Hill to get behind the effort. Their message? The crackdown intensified after Pakistan's disputed February 2024 elections. Elections marred by allegations of massive vote rigging, ballot manipulation, and voter suppression designed to keep former Prime Minister Imran Khan out of power. And activists say the repression hasn't stopped at the border. It's now followed dissidents overseas. Casar and Jayapal's move comes on the heels of other actions in Congress. Earlier this year, Republican Jack Bergman and Democrat Greg Stanton sent a joint letter to President Trump calling for visa bans and restrictions on US aid to Asim Munir's government in Pakistan. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are also pushing broader measures, including the Pakistan Democracy Act and the Pakistan Freedom and Accountability Act, tying US engagement to improvements in human rights and democratic governance. Advocates say the momentum is real. In their words, an ally cannot be allowed to intimidate activists on US soil just for supporting democracy. To understand why Pakistani Americans are feeling threatened by the Pakistani government and the military, we are now joined by the Republican leader of Pakistani origin, Junaid Khan. And joining us is Junaid Khan, who is a leader in the Republican Party. Junaid, thank you so much for joining us. The obvious question to you: what is the need for this letter? I mean, is this for real? I mean, when I read the news, I wasn't really sure if this is actually happening. But what is the need for Pakistani Americans to send a letter to Congress asking President Trump to take action?
So thank you so much, Rohit, to invite me to your program. So, see, this is not the first letter. I just wanted to set a stage before we just quickly talk about this letter on, especially this letter is addressing transnational repression, which been going on from last few years. There were a resolution in Congress which were passed massively with 368, I think, members of Congress signed that resolution, then followed by a few bills. And right now, there is another very important bill in Congress, which is called, if I'm not wrong, 5701, But the name of the bill is basically Freedom and Pakistan Freedom and Accountability Act. And the letters are the side supporting, that they support that bill. Now, this letter especially addressed the issue for American Pakistanis, green card holders, the students, the authorities back there in Pakistan. They've been suppressing the voices, especially the pro-democracy voices for Pakistan. They have used all sort of methods, abducting their families back there in Pakistan, calling them directly through different phone numbers, text messages, emails. They were a massive crackdown remotely on social media. So they were a huge, massive social media support for pro-democracy activists and directly, indirectly for PTI and everything else. Their accounts were blocked. Their credentials were asked forcefully so they can shut down those accounts. And what I heard in this letter, there were few high-profile media personalities who are in exiles. Their names are also there because some of them, their families were tortured. Some, their financial, their houses and their properties were, banned and everything else. So this specific letter talks about the Trump administration and the State Department should take action. And the action is like putting sanctions, targeted sanctions, Magnitsky laws, and travel sanctions. And if these officials who are involved in these human rights violations and transnational repressions to be banned to travel to US. So this is what, in a nutshell, this letter is about.
Junaid, and just to recap on what you said, transnational, repression, meaning, cutting across borders, influencing, diaspora, Pakistani diaspora over here in the US, or rather, I don't want to use the word torture, but kind of make it difficult for them to voice their concerns. Now, are the majority of Pakistani diaspora actually impacted right now with some of these actions that you've said, or these are like in isolation? What percentage of people do you think are getting impacted by these actions taken by the Pakistani government and the military?
So, Rohit, of course, there are, if not in thousands, there are definitely in hundreds of American Pakistanis who are the victim of transnational repression, and there are so many who have just stepped back out of the fear. Especially these social media activists, there were so many. They're just very normal people, and they now operate with different accounts, so they are not being targeted. I was also a victim of transnational repression. And being in American politics and someone who've been actively raising voice for democracy in Pakistan, and that is sad because, and that's where the letter and these bills and resolutions talks about that we as an American are protected, and transnational repression code and policies are very, very strict. Cross-border sort of harassment
Yeah,
of any means.
yeah.
So that's what it is about especially the targeted in this letter. It would be the demand to place targeted sanctions on these officials who are involved in these transnational repression and human rights violation.
Well, you know what, Junaid, we hope your family back home is safe, and we hope that every Pakistani American in America or American soil are able to express their views for democracy and exercise their First Amendment rights so that democracy can prevail in Pakistan. Junaid Khan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rohit.
Casar and Jayapal are now circulating this letter to their colleagues in the US Congress, hoping more members of Congress will sign on it in days ahead. President Donald Trump signed an executive order today initiating a process to designate certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as foreign terrorist organizations, a counterterrorism measure targeting chapters in Lebanon, Egypt, and Jordan that the administration says threaten US security in the Middle East. The order directs Secretary of State and Treasury to evaluate specific Muslim Brotherhood chapters for dual designation as foreign terrorist organization, and specially designated global terrorists. Officials have 30 days to submit a report and then 45 days to act. The administration cites the Lebanese chapter's involvement in rocket attacks against Israel after the October 7, 2023, and Egyptian leaders' call for violence against US partners and Jordanian leaders' material support to Hamas. The goal is clear: eliminate these chapters' capabilities, cut off resources, and end threats to American citizens. This continues Trump's broader counterterrorism push. Earlier this year, he designated the Houthis and 8 cartels, including MS-13, as terrorist organizations, conducted strikes against narco-terrorists, and restricted entry from countries with terrorism histories. As the 75-day process unfolds, the international community watches to see which chapters receive designation and how these hardline stands against one of the Middle East's most influential political movement reshapes regional diplomacy. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a phone conversation today, marking a significant diplomatic engagement between the world's 2 largest economies. The progress on trade tensions, Ukraine discussions, and plans for high-level meetings that could reshape US and China relationship. The call covered critical issues including Ukraine and fentanyl crisis and agricultural trade. Trump took to Truth Social declaring our relationship with China is extremely strong and announced what he called a good deal for our great farmers. Both leaders agreed to reciprocal meetings, the first in Beijing this April, then a US state visit later next year. The conversation builds on their Busan meeting, where the US lowered tariffs on Chinese goods and China paused export controls on rare earth minerals. On Ukraine, Xi emphasized support for peace as Trump pushes for a resolution by Thanksgiving. She also raised Taiwan, with Trump acknowledging its importance to China. This diplomatic engagement represents a delicate balance of trade interest and geopolitical tensions as both leaders commit to frequent communication. The world watches to see whether these signals a genuine thaw in US-China trade war or simply a temporary pause in economic competition. According to Chinese state media, Xi asserted that Taiwan's reunification with China is integral to post-war global order. A stunning digital deception just unraveled on X. Accounts posing as American MAGA patriots for over a year have been exposed as foreign operators from Turkey, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, running a sophisticated campaign to target Indian Americans and Hindu Americans. These fake conservatives weaponized the H-1B visa narratives, spread lies about Indians stealing jobs and controlling Silicon Valley, and injected venom into the US political debates, all while pretending to be patriotic Americans. Their mission? Ignite hatred, divide communities, and undermine one of the most successful American immigrant group. The mask has finally slipped, revealing a chilling truth. Much of the anti-Indian hostility online was a foreign propaganda all along.
Over the last few days, a new feature on X has blown off the cover of a coordinated online operation. Accounts that claim to be American, patriotic even, MAGA loyalists have now been exposed as operating from Turkey, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And here's the twist: many of these accounts were not just commenting on US politics. They were aggressively targeting Indians and Hindus living in America, especially accounts from Pakistan and Bangladesh. For the last year, since the election of President Donald Trump, these profiles pushed an identical playbook: inflame cultural wars, divide communities, and amplify resentment toward Indian Americans. They pretended to be American conservatives while driving a narrative built thousands of miles away. One of their favorite angles? The H-1B visa disinformation. These accounts routinely claim that Indian tech workers were stealing American jobs, that companies were importing cheap labor and that the US economy was being taken over by the Indians. But the goal wasn't protecting American workers. It was creating hostility between two groups that normally have nothing to fight about. And it did not stop there. Some of these foreign accounts injected themselves into sensitive conversations, from India's elections to Hindu-Muslim relations to US immigration policy. They pushed conspiracy theories about Hindus controlling Silicon Valley, mocked Indian cultural traditions, and amplified every fringe incident to paint Indian in America as threat. All of it done under the disguise of America First patriotism. But when the platform revealed their true location, the mask slipped. These were not grassroots American voices. These were foreign influence operators, coordinated, persistent, and strategically aligned. Their target was clear: undermine trust in Indian professionals, stoke division within the American right, and spread resentment against a fast-growing and a successful immigrant community. These revelations raise a much larger question. If so many foreign accounts were posing as Americans and injecting anti-Indian narratives into US political spaces, how long has this been actually happening for? And how much of the online hostility towards Indian was never real to begin with? What we are seeing now is the beginning of accountability, a digital ecosystem learning, finally, to unmask the source of the noise, and a reminder that in the age of anonymous influence, not every loud voice belongs to the country it claims to represent.
A political firestorm erupted tonight as the Pentagon announced it's investing Democratic Senator Mark Kelly and could recall the retired Navy captain to active duty for court-martial. The top story: a constitutional clash over military authority and what critics call as an unprecedented assault on congressional oversight.
Insane. We should all point out how insane this is. Hey, this is Ruben Gallego. I'm traveling through Arizona right now, and I just received the news that the Department of Defense is starting investigation against my seatmate, Mark Kelly. This is insane. We should all point out how insane this is. And, these guys are trying to say that they're not acting like fascists. They're not trying to give as much power to this president as a king, and they should stop acting like it. Mark Kelly's a patriot. There's no reason why they're going after him. He was doing his duty and just reminding people about their rights as service members. And, Secretary Hegseth, all these guys, you're not going to be able to scare us. We have a right to defend the Constitution of the United States. We have a right to tell other service members that they have a right to ignore illegal orders, and you're not going to be able to intimidate us.
The investigation centers on a video where Kelly and 5 other Democratic veteran lawmakers reminded service members of their duty to disobey illegal orders, warning that threats to the Constitution come from right here at home. President Trump labeled their actions as seditious and treason. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth dubbed them Seditious Six, accusing them of undermining military discipline. While 5 lawmakers cannot be recalled, Kelly remains subject to military justice as a retired officer. But troops are legally required to refuse unlawful orders, a principle established after World War II. Kelly and colleagues were simply reminding service members of their existing obligation. Kelly responded defiantly, "If this is meant to intimidate me from doing my job, it won't work. I've given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies." The controversy comes amid bipartisan concerns about potentially illegal military operations, including strikes in the Caribbean and deployments to the US cities over governors' objections. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer condemned the investigation, saying Trump is attempting to use the Pentagon as his personal attack dog. This unprecedented confrontation raises fundamental questions about civilian control of the military, congressional oversight, and the separation of powers, testing constitutional boundaries in ways America hasn't seen in generations. As the investigation unfolds, the nation watches to see whether reminding troops of their constitutional duties can truly be grounds for court-martial. Black Friday 2025 is breaking records, but not the way retailers hoped for. Nearly 187 million Americans are flooding stores this weekend, the biggest turnout ever. The twist, though, they're spending dramatically less. Shoppers who dropped an average about $2,000 last year are now budgeting just $750 for this year. Won't you ask why? Now, the rising healthcare cost, fewer genuine deals, and economic anxiety despite a healthy bank account. That legendary $5 toaster, now it's $10. Retailers started sales a week early, desperate to lock in purchases before shoppers change their minds. Sales may hit $1 trillion, but growth is slowing. Record crowds, tighter wallets, shrinking discounts. Welcome to America's most cautious Black Friday ever.
Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, when Americans flood stores for massive holiday shopping deals. It's called Black Friday because it's when retailers finally move from red ink to black, from losses to profits. But 2025? Record crowds, fewer deals. This is Black Friday with a twist. Nearly 187 million Americans are hitting the stores this weekend, the biggest turnout ever for the Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday stretch. But here's the twist. They are spending less. One New York shopper puts it simply. Everything seems to be way more expensive. Last year, $500 on gifts. This year, cutting that to $300. But she's not alone. One shopper in Idaho spent $2,000 on holiday shopping last year. This year, $750. The reason? Healthcare premiums are about to skyrocket. Electronics and big ticket items? Off the list. Just shoes, books, and kitchenware now. Here's the thing about Black Friday. It's built on one promise. Unbeatable deals. Doorbusters. The kind of discounts that make camping outside stores at midnight feel worth it. But this year, that promise is breaking. Retailers are pulling back. That toaster that used to cost $5 after rebates and coupons, now it's 10. Brand consultant Jessica Ramirez said promotions are fewer, shorter, and less predictable. Quote, when promotions do show up, they're spot promotions. They don't last long. Retailers know what's happening. Walmart, Amazon, and Macy's launch deals weeks early, trying to lock in sales before shoppers change their minds. Walmart's Black Friday started on November 14th. Amazon kicked off its deals last Thursday. Here's what's wild. Americans actually have money in the bank. Household deposits are higher than before the pandemic. But people aren't touching those savings. They're holding back, being cautious, prioritizing essentials. The National Retail Federation calls it sentimentally weak and fundamentally sound. Translation, we can spend, we just don't want to. Sales are still expected to break $1 trillion for the first time ever. But growth is slowing, down from nearly 5% last year to around 4% this year. Black Friday was supposed to be the shopping event of the year. The day when deals were so good you couldn't afford not to buy. But in 2025, it's about finding any deal worth taking. Shoppers stretching dollars further while retailers stretch promotions thinner. Record crowds, tighter wallets, higher prices. That's not just Black Friday, that's America right now. Happy shopping. With Devangna Datta, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
The White House is getting into the holiday spirit with traditions old and new. First Lady Melania Trump officially kicked off the Christmas season today by receiving a stunning concolor fur from Sydney, Michigan. White House tours return December 2nd after renovations for President Trump's new ballroom wrapped up. Tomorrow, President Trump continues another beloved tradition, pardoning a pair of Thanksgiving turkeys before the first family heads to their Palm Beach estate for holiday. From Christmas trees to turkey pardons, the White House is celebrating America's most cherished traditions while preparing for a festive season at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Very well, thank you. Beautiful tree. It was beautiful. We're ready to plan starting today. Are you excited for Forest Trail?
And that wraps up tonight's edition of Desi from DC. This is Rohit Sharma for India Today. And if you're watching this on India Today Global, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. Stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay curious. Thank you for watching.